Hello and welcome. Today on BOI Weekly, Bank of Industry extends its intervention in the oil and gas industry to Techno Oil, a leading player in the petroleum sector. Starting out as a local distributor of petroleum products and then a franchisee of one of the major international oil companies operating in Nigeria just less than 20 years ago, Techno Oil today has come into its own and has steadily expanded its operation, playing real big across the entire value chain of the oil and gas industry. Their successful ventures and products in fuels, lubricants, liquefied petroleum gas, and lately LPG cylinder manufacturing, with the largest plant in West Africa, ensures that no fewer than 500 professionals remain gainfully employed. I'm Kaide Alayande. Welcome to the program. Techno Oil is an integrated, fully indigenous company operating in Nigeria's oil and gas industry. With a drive to significantly contribute to the economy, Techno Oil over the last 20 years has built a diverse portfolio of prime investments in oil and gas, energy, infrastructure, and manufacturing. Delivering matchless value and guided by global best practice, Techno Oil has built an impressive track record and has achieved a strong brand presence in the entire oil and gas value chain, producing fuels, lubricants, liquefied petroleum gas, and LPG cylinder manufacturing. With a mission to switch every household from unhealthy biomass fuels to LPG and ultimately build a stronger economy in perfect harmony with the environment, Techno Oil made a strategic investment in an 8,000 metric ton capacity state-of-the-art LPG storage terminal in Apapa, Lagos. Further to this, with support from the Bank of Industry, the company recently built the first fully indigenous automated LPG cylinder manufacturing plant in Nigeria. But from where did the Techno Oil journey begin?
I will always say that Techno Oil started from a very humble beginning, and it came out of the gap that existed many years ago when the multinationals or the IOCs were basically in the business of the downstream sector, about 99%. And there were this gap, and there were gap whereby some medium or small size companies were basically not having been attended to. And Techno Oil came up to be able to close that gap and service those medium-sized companies. And most of those companies are companies owned by Nigerians. There was a gap, and Techno Oil filled that gap. And our business model at Techno Oil has always been to fill the gaps.
We started with selling lubricants, and not just lubricants as you see in packed products. We started in selling industrial lubes. And industrial lubes in Nigeria at that time seems like someone selling vulture meat. And you know how hard it is to sell vulture meat. So that was what we sold at that point in time, industrial lubricants. And it was difficult to get into customers that are already using a mobile or a BP or a Shell products. So, but with our desire, we were able to push through. At the point we were selling Exxon Mobil products, which was, Exxon Mobil today, but which was known as ESSO then. So we were the sole representative in Nigeria, and we grew their products here, becoming at that point, doing about 50,000 metric tons a year in volume. With our experience in that, then we had to start blending our own today. And we've been doing that since the past 15 years.
I was just Techno Oil, but over time, as the company begins to grow and expand, from oil, from the white products, then we gradually scaled up into gas and power. Recently, the cylinder manufacturing came into being last year, although it took about 3 years from construction, but it was officially commissioned last year by the vice president. So that part of the business has been there for now a year operationally.
Since inception, Techno Oil has never looked back, expanding its operations across the entire value chain of the oil and gas industry. Talk about fuels, lubricants, liquefied petroleum gas, and now LPG cylinder manufacturing. They are making these strides armed with a philosophy of shared value, wealth creation, and strategic partnerships by providing progressively sustainable energy for all.
Well, we've been working very closely with the government, and I'm sure you're aware that the government, they've been talking up the issue of people moving away from biomass, the use of firewood, the use of kerosene to gas. So we felt that there was a huge gap internally. We did our research, our own study, and we felt it's a place we can walk in, we can bridge that gap. So we approached the government, and we spoke to them, and they encouraged us. So we set forth on that journey, and the rest was history.
We ventured into some other business along the value chain, including gas and fuels. We're also going into manufacturing the cylinder, gas cylinder manufacturing. We're also coming up with bulk gas supply, LPG, what is known as cooking gas, the fuel. So what we bring in the system is efficiency, availability, and trustworthiness. So in terms of quality assurance, we're also there.
The Techno Oil gas facility can produce between 5 to 7 million high-quality gas cylinders every year and is by far the largest of its kind in West Africa.
So we take the quality check of our cylinder very seriously. Before we commence production of cylinder, the first thing we do is to carry out the inspection of the raw material, the hot roll mild steel coil we use for the production of the cylinders. We carry out the inspection of the material. We do the chemical analysis of this material. We also do the mechanical, we also check the mechanical properties of the material. We have a machine called spectrometer to carry out the chemical analysis, and we have a tensile strength machine in our lab to carry out the mechanical test. After carrying out the mechanical test and doing all the necessary inspection, if the material meets the specification as stated by NIS 69-2013, approved by SON, which is the standard we use for our production, that is the only time the material is acceptable for production. After the deep drawing of the disc, this is what is out. As we can now see that the edges here are looking very rough. So we do the trimming to make it very straight and smooth on this trimming machine. So after trimming of the lower part of the cylinder, this is where the foot ring is welded to the body of the cylinder.
Having developed the capacity to bring LPG to every home in the country, Techno Oil is also executing the strategy to make it happen.
We can actually do several millions a year. We have the capacity to produce several millions of cylinders per year. The capacity is there. But obviously, the capacity has to be predicated on the demand. So the capacity is there. What we need right now, and that's where the awareness comes in, that's the difficulty. When we started last year, yes, the awareness was there, right? But it took a while. And gradually, we're now beginning to see the need, because we're not getting the orders coming in. So, and that's as a result of, when I talked about the expansion, that's why we're now expanding. Our goal right now is we have about 774 local governments here in Nigeria. We really want to reach out to every community. We truly believe in bridging that gap, in moving people away from the use of kerosene and firewood. And part of it is we have to reduce the cost of the LPG to the point where it will become attractive to the person who wants to move away from the use of firewood. The risk factors out there, they're enormous. We have a strategy where there's so many things we're doing, just initiatives right now. We have our swap and go. We are looking at strategic locations where you can actually come, right, and swap our cylinder for another one. So there are programs we are trying to put into place. The plan moving forward is also to implement and replicate the strategy across this 774 local governments in Nigeria. Moving forward, we have done something like that in a few local governments already, and that is the plan moving forward.
It's the desire of every business to meet market demand. Techno Oil is glad that the Bank of Industry was there to provide the needed support to take that leap.
BOI was very instrumental, and what they did, quite frankly, helped us in terms of, I'm not going to say in terms of expansion. We are now able to scale up, and that has also increased staff employment organically, where we do this within, as opposed to hiring people from abroad. And most of the cylinders in the past, I've said this, were all imported from China and India. Most of the cylinders we use in Nigeria, all imported from China and India. But today, with the help of our BOI, we're able to produce this locally. So that's a major, major leap and a win-win for everybody, for Nigeria, for the company, and perhaps even Africa. Because the goal actually is maybe in the future, we might begin to export. So that's a win-win situation for everybody.
Well, I think in the manner of assessing BOI loans and whatever, they are have very stringent policies guiding them, and I believe that I think it took almost 2 years for us to assess that loan, you know, and it was okay because trying to put pen and paper on it, and it was okay. We worked well with them, and at the end of the day, getting the loan was more like a success story for us, and we are happy with that.
They were very professional in our dealings. It was, to me, it's unlike how you approach Nigerian banks. They required, whatever documentation they required from us, we provided, and as soon as those documentations were available, it was approved. It's not a normal, typical Nigerian business where you have to travel to Abuja all the time trying to meet with people, where you have to have a face-to-face contact. These things were done in a very professional way. Phone calls, documentation provided, and upon completion, and it was approved. So I will give you an A+. It was excellent. And I would hope that effort can be sustained.
BOI has done well with the government to be able to provide us a working capital. The plant we have today, the cylinder plant we have today, was financed by Access Bank. And what they did was the equipment and installation. And the BOI came up to finance the working capital for BOI. I think we're happy that at least that has been extended to us. We have taken it, and then we are up and running.
Techno Oil and Gas is big on local content. For manpower, they've been strategic in terms of knowledge transfer for local capacity building, and despite obvious challenges, they have continued to look inwards to get necessary technological inputs locally where possible.
Ironically, we do not have expatriates in our organization. They're all local, so they're all Nigerians, because we think we can find the expertise here. So we're using that to our advantage.
When we started, right, it was a mixed. It's more like a transfer of knowledge. So you really have to bring in the people that set up and install the equipment. So it was a mixed, where we have this transfer of knowledge and we have our indigenous manpower learning from the experts. Then upon the completion of that exercise, they left. So currently, what we have is just our indigenous locals manning the entire facility.
Because of the Local Content Act, we have managed to find a way to source most of our materials in-house, I mean in Nigeria, where it can be found, but sometimes it's difficult to do that. But because of the Local Content Act, most people have found a way to begin the production of some of these primary materials here in Nigeria, which helps us a whole lot to try to complete it in that space.
Ideally, we would love to source our raw materials locally, but the material inputs in the process of cylinder manufacturing, quite frankly, some of the inputs have to be imported outside the country. Ajokuta steel facility is not really working the way it should. If it is, then it would have been a good thing where we source our material, but currently we are still sourcing some of our materials outside the country. And we are working very closely with some companies to bridge this gap.
The challenges in the downstream sector are humongous, and they are hoping the government can do more to position local players for global competitiveness.
I can't even begin. I don't even know where to start and where to stop. We had multiple taxations, import duties, and so on. So it's been challenging on the infrastructure. We all know what exists in this country. Our infrastructures are very well decayed. It affects the way you do business, but somehow we're able to manage to put everything together and keep moving on.
There's too many regulations. There are overlapping regulations. You'll be surprised to set up a factory, a facility like that, you have to obtain over 20 approvals. That's a lot. If you have foreign investors, so many companies like that are not used to things like that, where you have so many. I just don't want to begin to name some of them. There are a lot. Now think about it. Electricity is a major issue. Now for you to run a factory like that, you literally have to generate your own power using diesel. That's a lot. That's an input in the cost of production. Then you begin to talk about other the community issues. You know, here in the oil industry, which we rely on, obviously you are aware of it. Forget about the fluctuations in oil prices, crude prices, but you talk about pipeline vandalism out there. You talk about illegal refining of products. This has discouraged IOCs from doing what investing. They've now all left, selling some of their wells to indigenous companies. So these are some of the things that are very discouraging. If the government can do something about it, then it will help to stabilize the economy.
As an operator in this industry, we will definitely want government to provide an enabling environment in terms of policy, in terms of incentives to drive the business. We basically have to do everything ourselves, you know, and it costs a lot of money. And at the end of the day, margins are eroded by providing those infrastructure. So it's a whole lot.
The year 2020 has been a mixed bag of blessings and headaches for businesses all over the world. The oil and gas sector was not spared, neither was Techno Oil. However, certain divisions of their business were positioned to maximize gaps presented by the pandemic.
If you break the petroleum industry, you have the downstream, the midstream, and the upstream, okay? For the upstream, yes, it has greatly affected the production because the machineries that use these products are not moving anywhere. Everyone is locked down. But for us in the downstream, we're lucky enough, and I'm grateful that we were not totally shut down. We were known as the essential commodities in Nigeria. So we were not shut down 100%, although the COVID affected us, that the volumes we were targeting at the end of the year, at the beginning of the year, was reduced because of the shutdown. And when they eased off a little bit, we were back in business, although not at the levels that we expected.
When the pandemic started, of course, there was total 100% lockdown. And at the end of the day, Techno Oil is a company that is involved in three major, entire value chain in the downstream sector. And that means we are into the fuels, we are into the lubricants, and we are into the LPG. And at that point, the fuels and the lubricants were almost zero because everybody is in the house and the vehicles are not moving. Basically, so when you have that, I think that is almost zero. So the only business that for us was a bit up and running to a bit was the LPG, the cooking gas, because we produced the cylinders and we have to, it became part of the essential commodities that has to be allowed to exist during the pandemic. And that business of ours was on and running, was up and running. And what we did, we did well on it. And what we did was to deploy a whole lot of other staff into that area to ensure that, because the demand was a bit huge at that point, so that our customers, we can meet demand.
We are part of a company that may have benefited from the COVID, and in the sense that we are classified as an essential commodity. People have to cook, people have to use some of these materials, these products and services. Having said that, there was a point of minimal disruption in the process, but overall I think we came out okay. We could have done better, but I'm not going to say I know it pays in comparison to what other companies suffer. There are still some companies even out here that are yet to come back. You know, so many IOCs are yet to reopen. Some are planning reopening in January of next year. So I consider it, I think we are fortunate in that regard because of what we produce and our service to the community, and that's why we're still in business.
Jack Ma said, for this year, your profit should be that you are staying alive. And for me and for Techno Oil, I think that's our mantra. We want to stay alive, we want to keep safe, and then by next year, so what we are doing today is to sustain the business, continue to sustain the business, that it continue to exist.
Aside from the specific intervention from the Bank of Industry, the company also enjoyed the latest government interventions targeted at local businesses to shield them from the impact of COVID-19. These include extended moratorium and reduced interest rates.
We are very well inundated with what's happening in the policies the government has come up with in trying to help companies like ours, especially on the moratorium on the reduced rates. Yes, we have, and we have taken a special advantage of that, and that has aided us in trying to keep our production on since the COVID.
We were very appreciative when they reached out to us, and they gave us that information that they were going to extend. It cushions the effects on the COVID, and that's really why I'm not here complaining about the difficulties, because it would be unfair and quite frankly a travesty for me to do that. So that's a major help. It has it helped in terms of retaining staff. We did not lay people off. So there's a whole lot we're doing right now as a result of the help BOI extended to us and the extension of repayment of the loan.
The Bank of Industry has held and sustained a vast array of interventions in the oil and gas industry over the years. Not only that, there are thousands of players in the petrochemical industry that have also enjoyed the bank's support. If you play in the oil and gas or petrochemical industry, we're happy to let you know that there are specific tailor-made funds at the Bank of Industry that can take your business to the next level. Also, most of the federal government intervention funds targeted at the oil and gas industry are domiciled at the Bank of Industry. All you have to do is reach out to BOI and get a piece of the action. Visit any of the bank's branches closest to you or log on to their website at boi.ng and feel free to follow them on all their social media platforms displayed on the screen. And that will be our show for today. Many thanks for watching. I'm Kayode Alayande. Bye now.